Another amplifier. Okay, so what we're here to look at today is an Eagle 525. This thing was brand new. My friend Mr. L bought this thing he goes, man, when I bought this thing, it was supposed to be brand new. And I believe it. This cabinet does not have a scratch one on it. And I have tried really hard to keep this thing from getting scratched while it was here. I had it wrapped in plastic and then wrapped in a towel. And it promptly got buried amongst stuff. And I wrapped up all my ROs and I said, well, I got to do pickup work, which means I got to go around and get stuff squared away. If I remember correctly, when I was going to look at this last, I tried to call Larry. He was sick or something. I don't remember. I just remember this thing got set aside and I told myself I'd come back to it. And that's probably my mistake. Actually, I know it's my mistake and I'm okay with that. And I apologize to you, my friend. The screws for the cabinet are not stripped out. They're not damaged. They're all tight and fresh and just like before prom. We all knew that girl. We all knew what was going to happen. Because we all talked about it in the locker room before it happened on prom. I go, hey man, Mike's going to get with Tina. And you know Tina, she's might be her first timer. And we're all like, hey Mike, go slow on her, man. Ease into it. Let's ease into this. The reason this beautiful amplifier is here for us to look at, and gentlemen, please understand, I personally am not a fan of working on sweep tube amps anymore. And what it boils down to is they're basically made out of tin foil. And the way people handle packages today is violent on its best day and non-loving, non-caring on its worst. These amps were built for a different time and a different era. So it's 2 driving 5. I'm not too sure which tubes are in this. Let's pull out one of the driver tubes. Let's take a look at it. Oh man, the sockets are tight. God, the thing is pristine on the inside. 20LF6. Oh. So it means each tube should do about, I've never seen the top of a tube formed like this. It's like they brought 4 points and then squeezed them together. The reason it's here is because he says his pass-through SWR is through the roof and that this thing won't do more than 500 watts. And I went, okay. And then today when I talked to him today, oh, we got a note stuffed in here. I like notes. Hey there, Mr. BBI. This is, yeah, but me and him have been doing a lot of projects. He goes, thanks for helping me fix that, and I got to leave that out because then it would really lead to who he is. For your help on all the other stuff you've helped me with over the years. This box just called you in. Okay. Please change out the PL259 connectors on the back. Okay, so he says the thing is stuck at 500 watts. It won't do a watt more. He goes, I don't know, maybe that's what it's supposed to do. It's like saying to a Mako, look at this. Ah, thanks, buddy. It's like saying a Palomar 300 will only do 300 watts. I don't believe it, but we'll find out what's going on here. These tubes look mint. The power supply looks pristine. He goes, my pass-through tune is high, it will not do more than 500 watts. The coax connectors are so short that I can't get my coax to thread on there tightly. That concerns me. can you please help? And my answer to all of those questions is, yeah, sure, okay, no problem, yeah. Now let's see if we can get everything out of here without breaking anything. There we go. Wow, the cooling system on this is way better than, let's say like a Palomar or something like that. That's freaking neat. Hold on a second. Look at the inside of this. The metal isn't even tarnished on the inside. There's no oxidation on the aluminum or nothing. This transformer is in mint beauty, beautiful condition. There's just a little tiny bit of rust on the sides of it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't think it matters to anybody else out there in YouTuber land. The tubes look magnificent. The blockers look beautiful. And our parasitic suppressors are all mint. I mean, I really don't think this thing has been fired up that much. It says 11-4-10 down here on the sticker. Let's look at the back side of this. Really just want to take a minute and look at it for a second. I've seen this be for this plug, by the way. I've seen this. It says XTAL. And that's an L, not a 1, by the way. I've seen this be for Dow keys and all kinds of stuff. I'd assume this is for an external key or some kind. So, that tube socket with no tube in it could be our driver tube that might be missing. But since it's on this board, I would assume it's part of the keying circuit. We will quickly figure it out. Nice solid grill on the fans. And then of course the RF deck itself is spotless. I highly doubt we'll ever see another tube amplifier that's sweep like this, that is this mint, unless it comes out of somebody's hermetically sealed basement. Right? The diodes look brand new. Nothing's even been hot in this thing. It's obviously never been around a smoker. Well, other than this one clip being a little rusted, maybe those 2 clips are just a little discolored, maybe 3. But still, it's not enough to cause a problem. It's really not. Wow, this thing is in good shape. So now he said to me it was keying. And, you know what? Let's set it up on its side. Let me take the bottom off of it, and I want to look at the bottom to see how it's wired. There's not even any real scratches on the base plate. You can tell somebody's sweaty hand touched here and touched here, but that'll wipe right off. Look at the inside of this. I don't believe I've ever had one that's been here that this is this nice. Normally they're all butchered. I mean butchered. This amp has never been used. We got 2 zip ties holding the whole thing together. Everything else is bent, cut in nice. Wow. So, back up here to our little key adapter. I have a feeling that this is the keying tube, since this runs directly to the tube. Yeah, that's what's going on. So this lead goes to ground, which goes to the top post, and the bottom post goes to this lead. I bet you he was using an external keyer. I'll have to call him. Boy, this is an easy conversion for them. Look at this. Here and here. So power supply leads go in here, go to this tube. So this lead goes in, goes to this tube, comes up, goes out, comes in, goes out, finds ground, goes to this tube, finds a ground here from this side for the filament, goes back to the power supply. That's slick. The coupling diode here. Wow, the caps just look mint. Man, buddy, where did you find this thing? This thing is beautiful. So we'll replace these two coax leads. Sorry, I got lost in just admiring the beauty of this. These two coax leads, we'll probably end up replacing the coax connectors for sure. We'll use silver plated, we'll use panel mounts. So we'll thread them in with 632s. The cap is pristine. You got to think there's not a lot of airflow down here, so this thing's just sitting there baking in the heat, but then again, the amp has never been used, so therefore it's never really been hot. This is also another reference to ground. So on the front of this thing, there's an RCA jack. It's right here. And what attaches to it, it goes to this purple wire. And the purple wire goes to on and spot tune. Okay, I'm getting it. Ground. So it switches. Spot tune off. Nulls this out. But when we turn spot tune on, it goes to the green wire. Green wire runs out. Where does it go from here? It goes through this. It comes out here, and then it drops over to here in the corner. That's cool. Okay, so we've got a couple different ways to key it. Here and here in the front. So this is manual operation. That's great. That's freaking great. Standby, operate, high-low, spot tune. Wow, it's got a plate volts and then plate amp. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So the tubes on this thing are perfect. Absolutely perfect. Like brand new. So I'm debating with myself if I should bother doing a tube test. So now our pass-through tune. That's the biggest complaint he's got. Is that the pass-through tune, like half the watts are going in the amp, and with the amplifier not keyed, over half is being able to pass through it without the amplifier being keyed. What does that boil down to, you ask? This right here, and compensating for this length of the wire and this length of the wire and that trace. So we'll probably end up tacking on this trace and then bonding to ground a little capacitor here to help mellow things out, let the RF move through. That also means he's given up half of his receive, if that makes any sense. The two things run hand in hand. If you can't smash the RF through the box, that means the RF that's coming from your antenna down to your radio is also getting cut down by the same percentage. So if you're losing half your power, that means you're losing half of your receive. It's the same amount of resistance applied both ways to the circuit. And it's a resonant resistance, not something you can measure with a voltometer. You'd have to put a signal through it, so you can do it with like a grid dip meter. Damn, Bubba, this thing looks great. This really looks great. It's even got when I was a kid, we used to have an Army surplus store, and it was right down by the river. And that was back when they were, they would sell things out to the United States citizens. The Army had it for, let's say, 10 years, or Marines or Navy or whoever had it for 10 years, and it would time out. They'd put stuff in bins and they'd sell it at military auctions in the surplus store. You could go in there and get everything. Military BDUs, web gear, H gear, everything. If they used it in the United States military as an infantryman or serviceman or whatever, they had it in it. You'd walk in there and Amp smells just like surplus, military surplus. I don't, there's no real other way for me to describe that scent. This thing is brand new. All right, let me call my guy. Okay, so let's start here. Right now, the center of this thing is set up for 27.025. And then down here is like 24 megahertz, and up here is 27 megahertz. So we're looking at a little bit wide hunk of frequency here. Okay, now the coax jumper that we got going on is 6.5 feet to here. So this little 3-foot jumper that we have in here is adding a little bit of reactance to the coax. There's a big difference between resonant wavelength and reactance. So we have a 1.1 SWR. Now let's go over here, and we're going to hook that up to the coax connector. And we're going to take this 3-foot jumper of RG360 and we're going to hook it up to the SO239 or PL259, SO239. Whew. Wow, that's dramatic. So we've got a really good dip. Let's bring our little red marker down here. Around 22.85 megahertz. But over here at the green marker, which is the middle of the band, we have an SWR that's looking like it's just right at 4.8, 4.9, which is bad. That's bad. That's really bad. So can capacitance fix this problem? No, there's something else going on. What I'm doing is I'm taking my finger and I'm wildly, inappropriately touching this virgin. I should be able to touch these leads and there should be some change here on the meter, and it's going from 4.92 to 8.94. The same thing going on here. Okay. So I think maybe the connections on the relay might be hobbed and knobbed off a little bit. Maybe that's the only thing in this entire box that got a little corroded. We'll find out together, you and me. Just want to measure that real quick and get ourselves a baseline. Okay, let's go figure out the pass-through issue first. So as we can see, I got out my special little tools for cleaning relays, and I went to set the amp down, and then my eyes immediately went to this. I think somebody's been inside this relay before. So if I'm very careful, I can slide the cap off just like that because somebody else has already been in here. And now, before I get too carried away, I want to just jiggle, you know, a little bit of wiggle. Not the jingle it folds kind of thing, but just a little bit of wiggle. So let's fire up the network analyzer again. We'll say run. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm very lightly touching the relay and I'm watching this thing change live. Try to get your KC901, or not KC901, but your AA35 zoom or any of that stuff to do this live. So this is a broad frequency representation. So we're looking at what we got for an SWR dip. Sorry, I'm messing around with a couple different things here. This is our part of our input tune network. Okay. So what is the ghost in the machine here? Yeah, I don't think the relay's muffed up. I just think we got a shit circuit design. Huh. So, I've been on vacation since the last segment that you guys just watched in this segment. So I come home with a clear mind, clear conscience, and while I was on the phone with one of my students, his name is Chris, by the way, we can talk through the box now. I was kind of problem solving this thing. And there was an inductor and a piece of wire attached to this circuit that did not make any sense to me why they were there, right? I'm going to show you what that is. So RF comes in on this connector here. Let's go ahead, we'll hook up, while we're all sitting here, we'll go ahead and we'll hook up the base or the workbench 2950. So grab something to point with here. RF comes in on this conductor here, goes down through this wire and it hits this trace. Well, the trace tees off and it goes over to here. Nothing should touch this trace other than the keying circuit. Move this out of the way. Hold on one sec. Wife just walked out and randomly starts talking to me and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were filming." Yeah, I know. So the RF should be able to pass from this pole on the relay, then go across this trace, then go back out across the relay, and then come back out and go through. And attached to this is a capacitor. It's right here. This is what controls the keying circuit. There's a little disc capacitor. Up here, attached here is a piece of wire, and attached here is an inductor. And the inductor loops back here and goes to ground. Well, this piece of wire crosses over, goes to this trace, which then in turn goes to an air winding on the other side. And I'm like, why do we have this inductor here going to ground, number one? And number two, where is this going? This piece of wire. This piece of wire goes directly over to the input network. So I went ahead and I ordered up that drive tube. That let's see, what was the part number on that? Let me look here real quick. The 10BQ5, little peanut tube, little drive tube. And I put it in here and it didn't make any difference because then I quickly deduced after that this amplifier was set up so it either could be extremely low drive or low drive. Extremely low drive would be if you had a radio that did 1 watt, maybe swaying up to about 3 watts. We would add a jumper in here that we don't need to do today, but we're going to leave that peanut tube in there so I can give all the best options to my friend Larry that owns this thing. I'm like, why are we taking the RF and grabbing it here and then putting it here into the input network? So I thought, well, let's just go ahead and remove that wire and we'll see if we can get this thing to run a little differently. Well, the instant I pulled that wire out, everything started to run perfect. With the wire in place, I had an SWR of pass-through SWR of 10, and with the amplifier on and keyed, which took a great deal of power to overcome the high standing wave, right? The amplifier would make maybe 400 watts worth of power, 450. It makes significantly more. I think, you gotta remember, these old school guys that built these amps, they had to do all kinds of crazy stuff to get around the FCC, right? I think maybe we have ourselves an Ameritron situation going on. So ask yourself, what do you mean by Ameritron situation? Well, Ameritron has to dance a fine line, right? Just like anybody that makes an all-band piece of equipment that is type accepted for the FCC, they have to make it so the thing cannot transmit above 25 megahertz. It's that simple, right? Well, the way Ameritron handles it is on their input band selector, they take the band selector that's designed for 25 through 30 megahertz, and they take the input on the band selector and they short it over to ground, and they do it with a piece of wire, and then they hang it out of the back of the input network, the band selector. So those of us in the know, which is basically the entire ham world community, all you got to do is go in and snip that piece of wire and make sure the two ends aren't touching and the insulation isn't damaged on it, and you're off to the races and running. Okay, so we're alive and we're running, and we just got to remember not to stick our hands down and no, there's like 2 feet between me and the amp. So look, we'll stick our fingers in here, I think we'll be okay. So let's run across the board. Let's see what we got. We got a 5-watt slug going forward. We got 1,000 in average as always, and 1,000 in peak. So let me show you dead key first. We're going to put 1 watt through it. Now let's slowly pan up and try not to make anybody sick here. That is a 5-watt slug in reverse. Now what we were seeing before was with this 22-watt radio, we were pinning the needle in the corner with the amp in standby. Amp is in standby. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. There's nothing there. Now over here on the watt meters, before we'd key it up and we'd have 0 movement. 1, 1, 1, 1, hello. So we're gonna put probably about 16 watts in this thing. That's it. So let's go put this in operate. Let me flip my 5-watter back around. Let's back this off so you guys can watch everything going on here. It's over 1,000 peak. Hello. Just like that, nails it in the corner. Let's take it over to 2x. Hello, audio. Making 1,200 watts peak. Hello. 1,300 watts peak envelope power with 18 watts of drive. Let's redo this again. Hello. Remember, between the 40 and the 60 on the 2,000 watt scale, right there's 1,000 watts, right? That's 12. And we're just running this off maybe a slightly overtaxed outlet. So we're gonna have plate bolt drop and all that kind of stuff, but hello, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2. Hello. About 13 and some change out of this thing, which is really, really well. That's always wondered what a brand new out-of-the-box sweep tube amplifier would do. I mean, with 100% brand new tubes, 100% brand new caps, hasn't been abused. Now we know. Now we're looking at the input tune. Hello, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Hello, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. All by disconnecting 1 wire. So, yeah. You know, there's quite a few amps. I'm not trying to single out Ameritron. There's quite a few amplifiers that run like this, that when they're produced, they come out like this. Most of them actually will not let you transmit above 25 megahertz in frequency. They just won't. You always got to modify them just a little bit. As they call it, the Mars mod. The Mars mod. So this is how you Mars mod the Eagle 525. This amplifier is cool. It's actually got meters on the front of it, right? A sweep tube amp with a plate volt gauge. I mean, like, check it out. So we can make it read volts or amps. Hello. So we're overdriving it right there. Period. Oh God. Hello. 1 2. What I'm doing is I'm backing down the mic gain to decrease the amount of drive going in it until we're back underneath that red line. Hello. 1 2. Well, how many watts is that? Hello. Right around 1,000. Right? But there isn't a self-respecting CBR on the face of this planet that doesn't get up every day and go, man, I'm going to put them all on the guy. Let's overdrive it a little bit. Hello, 1 2. And I could probably kick it up a little bit more and drive it a little bit harder if I wanted to. Turn the volts up on the radio and get it up to a whopping 28 watts of output. Or I could hook up that driver tube. I suggest we do neither. I love this. Hello, 1 2. Floats at 1,000, but underneath the load it drops down to about 700 where it should be. Hello, 1 2 1 2. Dig it. I dig it. So now the pass-through issue's fixed, input tune issue's fixed, which they were tied together. I mean, really? You could have taken that same wire and gone on the pass-through trace, shorted that to ground. That's what it took to fix it. That's all it took. We didn't have to cut nothing, add no caps, butcher nothing, modify nothing, change nothing. Just know that we needed to remove that wire, which I didn't know. CB Tricks didn't know. I'm sure there's about a dozen old timers that are going to be down in the comments in the doobly-doo going, I knew! Why didn't you call me? I didn't know and I figured it out. It's all good. So, with that being said, and we've let this thing cool down a little bit. Oh, let's change the high-low. Hello, 1 2. So that was low, here's high. Hello, 1 2 1 2. So low gets us, hello, sheesh, about 500 watts. High, hello, 12, 13, and some change. Hello, 1 2. Look at the plate volts. It's not changing the number of tubes, it's taking away the plate volts. Love it. Hello. Spot tune works perfect. Okay, let this cool off. I want to change out the coax connectors on the back to make my buddy happy, and then I want to replace that solid core wire that's coming from the coax connectors down to the board. I want to wash the board real quick to make it look perfectly pristine, because that's my goal, is I want to maintain pristine for my buddy here, and I think we'll have it wrapped up. Okay, so new coax connectors installed. Got flexible silver plated stranded wire going to the connectors. Got the board all cleaned up and polished and pretty, like I was never in here. Signed it with everybody else, whoever this guy is, myself. It's all ready. All right, let's hook it up to a committed like 30 amp 110 outlet, and let's run it. Okay, radio, amplifier. Hello, hello, I get really tired of some of the things that get repeated a lot, like sweep tube boxes, they splatter, blah, blah, blah. Man, with parasitic suppressors and a pile network that's in this amplifier, that's in every amateur amplifier ever built, I'm telling you, hello, 1, 2, hello, hello, I will put up a strong argument. See, the tuning network here is only going to let a small spectrum of RF through. Period. But what do I know? I mean, really, what do I know? Okay, so let's turn this into standby. And let's go over here and we're going to talk watt meters for a second. So here we got our 1,000 watt and peak again, 1,000 in average. And I want to show you that I've turned the radio drive up by turning the voltage up on the workbench. At 1, 2, maybe 28, maybe 30 watts. At 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, at 1, 2. Okay. Let's go up here, our pass-through tune. At 1, 2, 1, 2. Which is pretty scooching good. All right, so we'll bring the radio and bring the amp into play now. Hit 1, 2. The fun part about having it on a nice big old committed 30 amp, remember this is dropping down around 500 volts. Hit 1, 2. So the higher we can keep them play volts, the more this thing's gonna put out. So we're past 1,000 watts now. We'll go to 2x. Now, as we all know, right here, between the 40 and the 60, that's 1,000 watts. So 12, 14, 16, 18, and 2,000. All right. Hello, 1, 2. This just made 1,600 watts with no effort. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 500 bird, 400 bird. Now I haven't sat here and played with it. That was literally me flipping the amp around, changing out the coax connector, plugged it in, turned it on, away we went. So, hello. One. That's all we're gonna get. It's about 18 and some change, maybe 1850. This box runs great. The ham community hates on sweep tube amps. I don't like working on them because they're so delicate. Like this thing's gonna have to be triple boxed on the way home because nobody cares about their job. Back when these amps were all put together, it was a different era. The Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, one, UPS and FedEx probably didn't exist, and two, they didn't have big giant automated warehouses that handle the mail. So there's no machines punching and kicking the boxes to move them around on the conveyor belts. It was all done by hand. So things didn't get dropped, smashed, or banged as hard. These things are basically made of tin foil. Maybe 17 and some change. We'll call it 16 to call it safe. Larry, thanks for sending this up for all of us to look at it and getting able to take in its full glory. This is a beautiful little amplifier. It's a virgin. We might have broke its hymus today by being inside of it, but we did the best that we could to maybe keep her intact for her wedding night. I'm just saying. She's a dirty girl and she's ready to put out now. That's all I'm going to say. Gentlemen, on that note, I'm going to say I'm going to run. I've got other things I got to go take care of. Great news as far as my personal health goes. Today I went down and I began the regimen of cortisone shots on my shoulder, and for the first time in 5 months, I'm not in any physical pain. Translation, I'm going to sleep like the dead tonight for the first time in 5 months. And I'm going to sleep till I can't sleep no more. And if that means 3 o'clock in the afternoon or an entire day, that's what I'm going to do. Chronic pain sucks. And also refusing to take pain pills sucks too, but I'd rather not get stuck on them goddamn. I've seen them things destroy so many of my friends. Just saying, it's not anything I'm interested. I'm just grateful I'm getting help. I'm going to do a couple rounds of these cortisone shots, and if this doesn't help my shoulder heal up, then they're talking about surgery, so, which I don't want to do. I don't want to do. Gentlemen, I appreciate you all. Shout out to Penna. Remember, Penna, you get a 5% discount if you mention BBI at the time of checkout. There's a promo code section on the webpage. If you call them and mention my name, you'll also get 5% discount. So, on that note, I got to run. This was a fun one. I actually had to think a little bit on this one. But brother, you're done. Shout out to my friends down here in a Patreon group, which I desperately need and rely on for support. And I thank these guys because they're the ones that have made this entire video ad-free. With or without ad blockers, it doesn't matter. Patreon makes it so I can set it so if you're watching this video on your phone, on your tablet, or whatever, and you don't have an ad blocker program, there are no ads. I give them thanks. If you've ever thought about joining or coming and supporting the channel, please come join Patreon, come check it out. On that note, gentlemen, I see you. Click, click.